Some people believe that first love disappears with time, buried beneath careers, responsibilities, broken dreams, and endless years of silence. I believed that too, until one unforgettable evening proved me completely wrong. I had gone to my 20-year high school reunion expecting nothing more than awkward smiles, faded memories, and polite conversations with people who barely remembered my name. Instead, I found myself standing alone in the corner of the old gymnasium, staring at the decorations that tried so hard to recreate our youth. That was when I heard soft footsteps behind me. Before I could turn around, a familiar voice whispered close enough for me to feel every word. "You still owe me that date." In that single moment, 20 years disappeared, and the life I had carefully built around loneliness began to crack open. Before we continue, if you believe kindness, second chances, and true love can change a person's life, please like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone special, and subscribe to Kindness Corner. Your support helps us keep sharing stories that remind us hope is never truly lost. For a few seconds I couldn't breathe. My heart pounded so loudly that the music playing across the room disappeared into silence. Slowly, I turned around and saw the face I had spent years convincing myself I had forgotten. Emily looked different, of course. Time had painted gentle lines around her eyes, and there was a quiet confidence in her smile that hadn't existed when we were 17. But those same warm brown eyes still carried the kindness that had once made an awkward teenage boy believe he could dream beyond the limits of his small town. She smiled softly, almost nervously, and I realized she had been just as uncertain about approaching me as I had been about coming to the reunion in the first place. Back in high school, I wasn't the popular athlete or the confident class president. I was the quiet kid who spent afternoons working in my father's auto repair shop before going home to help my mother care for my younger sister. Money was always tight, and every decision our family made revolved around surviving another month. While my classmates talked about vacations, college visits, and weekend parties, I worried about whether our electricity would stay on until payday. Emily belonged to a different world. She was bright, talented, captain of the debate team, and somehow managed to make everyone around her feel important. Despite our different lives, she always treated me as though I mattered. We became friends almost by accident. One rainy afternoon, she noticed me eating lunch alone in the library because I wanted to avoid the noise in the cafeteria. Instead of joining her friends, she sat across from me with a smile and asked if I minded sharing the table. That simple act of kindness changed everything. We talked about books, movies, dreams, and the places we hoped to visit one day. She laughed at my terrible jokes, and I admired the way she could make even ordinary conversations feel meaningful. Slowly, without ever planning it, I fell hopelessly in love with her. The hardest part was believing someone like Emily could never feel the same way about someone like me. Every compliment she gave me felt impossible to accept. Every encouraging smile seemed like simple kindness rather than affection. My own insecurities became louder than reality. I convinced myself that staying silent was safer than risking rejection. So I buried my feelings deeper every day, pretending friendship was enough. Then came senior year. Graduation was only weeks away when Emily surprised me after school by asking if I wanted to go out with her sometime before everyone left for college. I was so shocked that I barely understood what she had said. She smiled and told me she had been waiting for me to ask first, but she was tired of waiting. I promised her I would take her to dinner that Saturday night. It would have been our first date, but life had other plans. 2 days before Saturday, my father suffered a serious accident at work. He survived, but his injuries meant months away from the garage. Overnight, I became responsible for keeping the family business running while helping care for him at home. Every dollar mattered. Every hour mattered. My dreams disappeared beneath responsibility. I never called Emily to explain. I never showed up for the date. I told myself I would explain later, but later turned into weeks, then months, and eventually years. After graduation, she left for college across the country, while I stayed behind trying to keep my family together. Shame became easier than admitting how badly I had failed. For years I avoided reunions because I couldn't bear the thought of seeing the disappointment in her eyes. Friends found successful careers, traveled the world, raised families, and celebrated milestones I never experienced. I spent decades repairing engines during the day and returning to an empty apartment every night. My parents eventually passed away, my sister built a beautiful family of her own, and the garage became my entire life. Customers respected me, but respect is not the same as companionship. Somewhere along the way, I accepted loneliness as the price of duty. When the invitation to the reunion arrived, I almost threw it away. Something stopped me. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe regret. Maybe the tiny part of me that still wondered what might have happened if I had simply told the truth all those years ago. Walking into the decorated gymnasium felt like stepping into another lifetime. Old photographs covered the walls, classmates laughed over memories, and familiar songs echoed through the room. Everyone seemed to belong except me. I wandered from conversation to conversation, smiling politely while feeling completely invisible. Eventually, I slipped away to a quiet corner, watching everyone else reconnect with lives that had continued without me. That was where Emily found me. She admitted she had searched the room for nearly half an hour before spotting me standing alone. She remembered the date I never kept, not because she was angry, but because she had always wondered what happened. She confessed that for years she believed I simply changed my mind. Hearing that truth hurt more than I expected. My silence hadn't protected anyone. It had only created unnecessary pain. I finally told her everything I had hidden for 2 decades. I explained my father's accident, our financial struggles, my fear of looking weak, and the crushing guilt that convinced me she deserved someone with fewer problems. Every sentence felt like lifting another heavy stone I had carried for years. I expected judgment. Instead, tears filled her eyes. She told me she would have understood if only I had trusted her enough to explain. She said she never cared about money or popularity. She cared about the shy young man who always helped teachers carry boxes after class, who secretly repaired classmates' bicycles for free, and who once spent an entire weekend fixing the school theater lights without asking for recognition. Those were the reasons she had wanted that first date. Not because I was perfect, but because kindness had always been my greatest strength. Listening to her words felt like rediscovering someone I had forgotten. For years I had measured my worth by what I failed to achieve instead of the quiet good I had tried to do for others. Somehow Emily remembered those small acts more clearly than I remembered them myself. The reunion slowly faded into the background as we walked through the empty school hallways together. The lockers looked smaller than I remembered. The classrooms carried the familiar scent of old books and polished floors. Every corner held another memory waiting patiently for us to notice it again. We laughed about embarrassing school plays, impossible math tests, and teachers whose advice finally made sense decades later. Outside, the evening air was cool and peaceful. The football field stretched beneath the lights exactly as it had years before. Emily smiled and reminded me that technically I still owed her dinner. This time I didn't hesitate. We drove to the small family diner that somehow still stood on the edge of town. The owner recognized us immediately, even after 20 years. We ordered simple meals and talked until the staff began stacking chairs for closing. We spoke about loss, hope, aging parents, career disappointments, unexpected blessings, and the strange way life teaches lessons only after enough time has passed. There was no pressure to impress each other anymore. We had both lived enough life to understand that honesty matters far more than perfection. Emily shared that she had married in her early 30s, but lost her husband to illness several years later. Grief had changed her in ways few people understood. She spent years believing happiness had ended forever. Returning for the reunion wasn't easy for her either. She came hoping to reconnect with old friends, never imagining she would finally receive the explanation she had quietly wished for all these years. As the weeks passed after the reunion, our conversations never stopped. Phone calls became daily routines. Weekend visits replaced lonely evenings. We discovered that while time had changed our circumstances, it had not erased the foundation of friendship built so many years before. Healing did not happen overnight. We both carried scars that would always remain. Yet those scars no longer felt like barriers. Instead, they became reminders that surviving hardship often makes love deeper rather than weaker. One Saturday morning, Emily visited my garage. She watched customers greet me by name, saw the free repairs I quietly performed for elderly neighbors, and noticed how children waved whenever they passed the shop. She smiled because she finally witnessed the man she had believed existed all along. I realized something important that day. Success isn't always measured by wealth or fame. Sometimes success is found in becoming someone whose kindness quietly improves other people's lives. Months later, we returned to the old high school together during a community fundraiser. Standing in the same hallway where fear once controlled my choices, I understood how differently life can unfold when people are willing to forgive. The greatest regret of my youth wasn't missing one dinner. It was believing I had to face hardship alone. Pride had stolen years that honesty might have saved. Looking back now, I no longer see my life as a collection of missed opportunities. I see it as a reminder that hope can wait patiently for decades. Sometimes life doesn't give us the story we imagined at 17. Sometimes it gives us a better one after teaching us compassion, resilience, and gratitude first. The date I failed to keep became the beginning of a journey neither of us expected, proving that second chances often arrive long after we stop believing we deserve them. If this story has touched your heart in any way, please take a moment to like this video, leave a heartfelt comment, share it with someone who believes in love and forgiveness, and subscribe to Kindness Corner. Your support encourages us to continue sharing stories that inspire hope around the world. Special request, before you leave, tell us in the comments, have you ever been given a second chance that changed your life forever? As we walked away from the school that evening, Emily reached for my hand without saying a word. There was no dramatic music, no perfect ending written by fate. Only two people who had finally learned that love is not about perfect timing. It is about refusing to let fear have the final word. 20 years earlier, I had walked away believing I had lost the greatest chance of my life. Instead, life had simply been waiting until we were wise enough to appreciate what truly mattered. And as the sun disappeared beyond the horizon, I realized that the most beautiful chapters are sometimes the ones that begin after we believe the story is already over.